Greetings, friends, and this is Michael Swain, Director of 4SA, with my wonderful colleague, attorney Daniela Ellerbeck. And today we're giving a short update video on the marriage bill, which is now open for comment until Thursday, the 31st of August. Very important that we understand and keep track of what's going on and have our say. So, Daniela, just give us a bit of background on the marriage bill policy and how this all came about.
Well, Michael, as you would be aware, the Department of Home Affairs published a draft policy 2 years ago, back in 2021. And the department invited the public to give comment on the policy, and 4SA ran an extensive public awareness campaign using various alerts and videos to inform people about the potential threats to religious freedom and explain to them how to have their say and voice their concerns. Now, 4SA has been constant in our contention that any policy which aims to set the framework for regulating marriages must explicitly protect the constitutional rights of religious marriage officers. So your pastors, your imams, and so forth, who have marriage licenses, not state employees. And to protect the constitutional rights of these religious marriage officers to only solemnize marriages which conform to their religious organizations' convictions and beliefs.
So we were involved this, as you know, right from the beginning. I was actually on a panel discussion up in Johannesburg. I'm going to be back actually on another panel discussion in, I think, a couple of weeks' time on the marriage bill now. But one of the things that we obviously were very aware of is the government were trying to do something which we felt was commendable, which was to consolidate the marriage laws of South Africa from three separate acts into one single act. And also what we were pushing for very importantly was that there would be a separation, if you like, of the things that government is very concerned about. For example, clearly, a marriage is the basic unit of society, and within a marriage, you obviously have children that are born, property is accumulated, and at some point, you know, the event of divorce or death or what have you, then there has to be clear understandings of how that property is divided. So that is government's issue, and they obviously want that taken care of. But then there's the solemnization issue. There's the more spiritual side, shall we say. So tell us, Daniel, what about the final policy itself? And you know, we saw it as a success story, but maybe just give us some highlights there.
So perhaps to just set out what a policy does as opposed to a bill. So a bill is a proposed law, and a policy sets forth what the state's position on something will be. So a bill is normally preceded by a policy, which sets out, okay, this is the position we're taking on this problem and this problem and this problem. And then a bill encapsulates that in how the law will deal with it. So, Michael, you're 100% correct. The final version of the policy, which is called the White Paper on Marriages in South Africa, was published last year in May 2022. And it's a legal document that sets out, again, the government's official position on some of the issues, such as solemnization, registration, all of that. And it's important because any new marriage laws have to align with policy positions set out in the White Paper. So the government can't say, look, this is the policy position we're taking in, and then draft a proposed law, a bill that takes in a completely different position. Those two need to speak to each other. Now, when the policy was gazetted last year, 4SA was very pleased to report that it took into consideration the religious community's concerns and objection that were raised. And in 4SA's analysis, the white paper is very balanced and recommends interventions and positions which are reasonable and which accommodate all members of South Africa's diverse society, because that is what we want. We want the government to make space for everyone in South Africa to live their lives according to what they believe, their thoughts, their beliefs, their opinions, their religion, and so forth. Now, for example, the white paper recommends that provision must be made for all religious formations, so any type of religion or church or temple or mosque, to have their own marriage officers who will solemnize marriages according to their own religious rights, while observing the basic requirements of the law. Now, in our view, these basic requirements, which relate to age, consent, legal capacity, and witnesses, are very reasonable and protect the parties getting married. Now, another important policy recommendation concerned the solemnization and registration of marriages. Now, the white paper recommended that the scope of who may solemnize and or register marriages, in other words, who can become a marriage officer, who can get a marriage license, must be broadened. And this will allow members from all social groups to be designated as marriage officers, which will better cater for the diverse needs of South Africa's pluralistic society. So practically, this means that all social groups will be able to have their own marriage officers who can solemnize relationships, and bear in mind that the very word solemnize comes from religious rites and ceremonies. So they can perform the religious rites and ceremonies or belief system ceremonies related to it in line with their group's own value systems while observing the marriage law's general basic requirements. Now, the white paper also further recommended that civil marriage officers, so your state-employed marriage officers, your employees of the Department of Home Affairs who are employed as marriage officers, won't perform any ceremonial, in other words, religious functions, so generally associated with the solemnization of a marriage. Because remember, we said that the very word solemnize comes from religious rites and ceremonies. And this will ensure that civil marriage officers' religious freedom will be protected while they provide marriage services to all members of society. So if you're saying that marriage officers who are employed with the Department of Home Affairs will only be concerned with registering marriages and that the basic legal requirements are met, that people know that they're getting married, they understand and appreciate what marriage means, that they're old enough to get married, that they're doing this freely and voluntarily, and then there's no getting involved in any religious aspect of a marriage at all. So in our view, the policy is the policy position is a very welcome splitting between the functions of the state and religious organizations.
And so now we have the marriage bill before us. And obviously the question is, to what level does the marriage bill reflect the marriage policy? That's now what we need to be concerned about, because a policy is one thing, but the bill will ultimately, once it's gone through all the processes, become the law which actually governs this whole area. So Daniela, just maybe jog us through quickly the three main areas that we were concerned about. Obviously, the recognition of marriages was one thing. Obviously, marriage officers and what their role and responsibilities are and who can be one was another. And then religious marriages itself. Let's just quickly run us through those three areas.
Well, Michael, Forrest is very pleased to say that, in our opinion, the marriage bill, which, as you said, is currently open comment, is really overall a very good draft. In terms of recognizing marriages, it recognizes all existing marriages, irrespective of whether a particular marriage was concluded in terms of an existing law, so in terms of the Marriage Act, or the Civil Union Act, or the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act, or in terms of religious rights, like Muslim rights or Hindu rights. So this will effectively eliminate many of the problems faced by people in so-called unrecognized marriages. Furthermore, the bill also recognizes all future marriages that comply with its proposed requirements, which are minimal and reasonable. Again, they relate to age, that the parties are freely and voluntarily getting into a marriage, that they understand what a marriage is, to witnesses for the registration of a marriage, and so forth. And when it comes to marriage officers, in line with the policy, the bill proposes that anyone who holds a responsible position in an organization can apply to be a marriage officer. So this will no longer be limited to religious marriage officers only. Thirdly, looking at religious marriages will only need to comply with minimal requirements relating to, again, like we've said, age, consent, legal capacity, and witnesses. And in addition, these religious marriages must either be negotiated or entered into in accordance with the beliefs and practices of that particular religion, or they must be celebrated in accordance with the requirements of that religion. So very easy requirements to be met for religious marriages. Now, Michael, given that the bill tackles these three areas, does 4SA have any concerns with the bill? Is there anything that we see that can or must be improved in the version that is currently open for comment?
Yes, we do. And obviously, as you said, we're generally speaking happy with it, but there are some areas, and often in these situations, it's the unintended consequences of perhaps those who draft the bill that have omitted something or not said something clearly enough. And of course, one of those is that even though anyone can apply to be a marriage officer, there's no clause that specifically allows marriage officers to refuse to solemnize a particular marriage. So the first concern is that it doesn't necessarily protect their right to religious freedom sufficiently, and that obviously falls foul of the Constitution. And so we are asking for a specific clause to be put in the bill that specifically protects religious marriage officers and the religious institutions to whom they belong from being forced to solemnize any marriage that potentially goes against their conscience, religion, or belief for whatever reason. I mean, obviously, different faiths have different reasons why they don't particularly approve or will not be willing to solemnize a type of marriage. And again, this is reasonable because in most Western countries and in African countries too, there is that express protection in this type of legislation. Secondly, we're asking for a clause that also expressly states that civil marriage officers who will perform obviously the legal aspects will not be in any way obligated to perform any ceremonial or solemnization aspects of a marriage to obviously fully protect their rights, which again, the policy indicated would be the case. And of course, one other concern is that the bill, the way that it's drafted, could potentially and unintentionally criminalize religious leaders who solemnize only the religious component of a marriage ceremony, not the legal part, but the parties might think that it's now a solemnized marriage and it turns out not to be. And we are asking again for a proposed wording change just to fix that issue. So that's what we're also asking, of course, religious organizations and individuals to do, because now this comment period is open. Very importantly, it's only opened until the 31st of August. That's not far away. And people can comment and make their submissions. And we've made it hopefully as easy as possible for people to do that and to understand what, in any event, in our view, are the major concerns. So, Daniela, just take us through the process that people can go through if they want to actually get involved and to make their voices heard.
Well, Michael, there's approximately 2.5 weeks left to give comment and to highlight those 3 concerns to the department that you've said and to ask them to incorporate those changes. And we are running a campaign to make the public aware of the bill and how they can comment on it. So how can you comment on it? Well, you can go to the 4SA website, which is www.forsa.org.za. At the top of the 4SA homepage, you will see a big slider banner that says marriage bills open for comment until the 31st of August. On the banner, there are 3 buttons. The first is the marriage bill video, which Michael recorded with some more information. Then there are 2 other buttons, one which downloads a template submission for individuals. So if Daniela in her personal capacity wants to send in a submission, she can download that. And the second is for organizations. So if a church, for example, wants to make a submission as a church, they can download that template. And it's very important in order to comment, if you're commenting either as an individual or as a organization, that you just click the relevant button for you, download the template draft, which is a Word document, and then you can just fill in your details as indicated and email it to the department. The email address is on the template at the top on the front page. So it's very quick and easy. Click on the relevant button, download the Word document, fill in your details, email it off. So very, very easy. And of course, people can share it as far and widely as they want. Alternatively, there's also a banner that will take them to an online submission via the DRSA platform. So importantly, just remember the deadline for comment is the Thursday, the 31st of August, 2023. Don't miss it. Tell others about it. Your voice matters. And for any more information, visit our website. Just again, www.forsa.org.za, where you can sign up for our newsletter, in which case we'll also send you alerts when things open up for public comment, or visit our Facebook page at Freedom of Religion SA.
Wonderful. Thank you, Daniela. And all those links are going to be in the description below as well. So we hope you found this helpful. And please also consider how you can support 4SA by making donations so that we continue to do the work that we do. Until the next time.
Good day. This is Daniela Ellerbeck, the Legal Advisor to Freedom of Religion South Africa. Remember to like and share this video and then click on the subscribe button to make sure you never miss our video updates on vital religious freedom issues.